Today, we're really digging into something, well, pretty fundamental if you want to get better at English. We're talking about the power of listening.
Absolutely key.
And our mission really in this deep dive is to uncover how deliberately improving your English listening. It doesn't just help your understanding, does it?
No, not at all. It's much bigger than that. It's fascinating how interconnected everything is, like a web. You strengthen listening and it actually boosts your speaking, your writing.
The whole structure gets stronger.
Exactly. And for this, we've looked at a whole range of sources, articles, research, but also lots of real life stories, people sharing their experiences, mastering American English. And the big theme, listening. It's highlighted again and again as the real engine for progress.
Right. So we're going to pull out the best bits, the most useful nuggets from all that.
Yeah, show you exactly how that transformation happens.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. If you're listening today, maybe you're prepping for a big meeting or getting up to speed in a new area, or maybe you're just really curious. This deep dive is for you. We want those aha moments, without getting totally swamped in information. Practical stuff.
Definitely. Actionable insights.
So communication. It's powerful stuff, right? At its core.
Oh, hugely. It shapes your career, your personal life, relationships, everything.
And our sources keep pointing back to this.
Yeah.
Sharpen your listening and you connect better with people. You understand their ideas much more deeply. But, I sometimes hear people worry about just passive listening, like having the TV on in the background. How do we move beyond that?
That's a great point. The sources emphasize active listening. It's about how listening actually trains your brain. It helps you anticipate patterns in the language. You move past just hearing sounds.
Right.
You start internalizing it, grasping the meaning behind the words, the speaker's intention, and then building that intuition for how to respond yourself confidently.
So it's not just vocabulary lists.
No, not at all. When you listen intently, you're kind of unconsciously mapping things out. Grammar, common word pairings, collocations, even whole sentence structures. Your brain builds this library it can pull from easily.
That really makes sense. And that's where it gets genuinely transformative, isn't it? Like Alex, from one of the sources, he deliberately worked on active listening in meetings.
Right.
And because he could grasp the nuances, he could then articulate his own points so clearly.
Yeah.
Made him stand out, got promoted.
A direct result.
Yeah. Or Sarah, moving to a new city.
Yeah.
Felt lost at first, with different accents, local phrases.
It happens all the time.
But she practiced, listened closely, repeated things she heard. And her skills just took off. Made friends, felt confident.
These aren't just nice stories. They show the real, tangible impact of focusing on listening.
It's interesting, though, because I think a lot of us, when we're learning, we jump straight to, I need to practice speaking more.
Very common.
But the sources show how deeply listening actually shapes natural, fluent speech. It's almost like learning to ride a bike, you said.
Yeah, exactly. It feels awkward at first, takes conscious effort, but you keep doing it, keep exposing yourself, and your brain develops that linguistic muscle memory. You just navigate things without constantly thinking about the rules.
Okay, so how does that work practically? How does listening make speaking better?
Well, one of the biggest ways is making your responses faster and more natural.
Avoiding that freeze-up moment.
Exactly. Instead of that pause where you're mentally translating or searching for the right word, you just react. Almost instinctively.
Because you recognize the patterns.
You start recognizing whole chunks of language, phrases, expressions immediately. It bypasses that bottleneck in your brain, builds fluency dramatically.
And it's not just speed, is it? It's also about sounding.
Right. Yes. Politeness, cultural nuances. That's huge. By listening carefully, you pick up how native speakers soften things. Like instead of bluntly saying, you're wrong, they might say, I see your point, but maybe we could look at it this way.
Subtle stuff that makes a big difference in conversations.
A huge difference. Helps you handle discussions respectfully, effectively.
Okay, what about pronunciation? That's another big hurdle for learners. How does listening help there?
Our sources talk a lot about a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. Tell me more.
It's pretty straightforward but powerful. You take a short audio clip, maybe just a sentence or two, listen to it a few times carefully. Then you try to repeat it exactly as you hear it, matching the speaker's tone, their rhythm, the ups and downs.
Mimicking them completely.
Exactly. You're trying to sound like their echo, their shadow.
And why is that so effective? Sounds simple.
It works because it connects your hearing directly to your speaking muscles. You're actively mapping the sounds you perceive onto the physical movements needed to produce them.
Ah, so it's training your mouth and your ear together.
Precisely. It builds those neural pathways for accurate sounds and, just as importantly, natural intonation and rhythm, which is often harder than individual sounds.
That makes a lot of sense.
And another thing listening does, it makes you more adaptable.
How so?
You get exposed to all sorts of accents, right? British, American, Australian, others. You start tuning your ear, and you get used to different speaking speeds, especially faster speech.
Which is crucial for real life.
Absolutely. You learn to pick out the key words even when someone's talking quickly. It prepares you for real conversations where there's no pause button.
Okay, this is all making a strong case for listening's impact on speaking. But now, the connection to writing. That one honestly surprised me when I saw it in the sources. How does listening help writing?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Sound versus text. But if you step back, think about what you hear when you listen to, say, a well-structured talk or even a good podcast discussion. You start to internalize how people organize ideas logically. You hear how they introduce a topic, how they provide supporting details, transition between points.
How they wrap things up.
Exactly. That whole structure, that scaffolding, you absorb it. And then you can apply that same logic, that same flow to your own writing.
So it's about learning structure through your ears.
In a way, yes. Whether you're writing an email, a report, an essay, that sense of good structure you've absorbed from listening helps immensely.
We saw a really good example of this with Jason, mentioned in the sources. He had a big work presentation coming up. So he started listening to podcasts on professional communication. Paid close attention to how the experts explained complex stuff simply, logically.
Smart move.
Took notes, then actually practiced writing his report using a similar style, similar structure. And the result, great report, felt much more confident presenting it.
That's a perfect illustration. And Daniel, too, another example, struggling with exam essays. He started listening to English news podcasts. Noticed how reporters structured their stories, their arguments, made a huge difference to his essay writing.
So it's structure, but what else?
Yeah.
Does it help with word choice in writing?
Definitely. It's about vocabulary in context. You might learn reliable from a dictionary, okay, but hearing someone say, oh, Daniel is super reliable, always meets his deadlines, that shows you how to use it naturally in a sentence. The nuance.
Got it. And common phrases too.
Yes. You pick up those essential connecting phrases, discourse markers, things like I would suggest or on the other hand, or one important thing to remember is
stuff that makes writing flow better.
Exactly. They help structure your ideas clearly, make your writing more coherent, and you hear them used naturally in speech first.
So the takeaway here seems to be it's about active listening again, right?
Yeah.
Maybe taking notes, then trying to rephrase or summarize what you heard.
That creates a really powerful feedback loop. You listen, you process, you write. It sharpens your listening and trains you to organize your thoughts for writing. Makes you better at summarizing, synthesizing.
Clear, logical thinking.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've covered speaking, we've covered writing, but the sources also suggest listening goes even deeper. It transforms how you actually think in English.
Yes, this is where it gets really fundamental. Think about processing speed. Imagine you're new to an English-speaking place. The cashier asks, would you like a bag with that?
Okay.
Early on, you might have to pause, translate in your head. But after lots of listening practice, your brain just processes it instantly. Yes, please. No, thank you. No conscious effort.
Automaticity.
Exactly. Your brain gets faster, more comfortable just operating in English without that constant translation layer.
And does that link to critical thinking as well?
It does. When you're actively listening to a debate or a complex explanation, your brain isn't just passively receiving. It's analyzing, evaluating, connecting ideas. You learn to spot the difference between a fact and an opinion, maybe figure out a new word from context.
So you're practicing thinking skills while listening.
You're training your brain to perform those analytical tasks in English, not thinking in your native language and then translating.
That's a key shift. What about understanding culture? Humor, for instance, that's always true.
Oh, humor is a big one. It's so often tied to cultural references or wordplay or timing.
Stuff that doesn't translate well.
Exactly. But by listening to jokes, stories, just casual banter, you start to get a feel for it. You learn idioms like, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, aren't literal. You start noticing how a pause or a certain tone makes something funny.
I remember hearing a joke once and just blank face. Later, after listening more, I finally got it. It's like unlocking a code.
It really is. And it's not just humor. Listening helps you tune into all those subtle cultural rules, social etiquette.
Like what's polite, what's not.
Yeah, what's formal versus informal, how you phrase things depending on who you're talking to. Like giving a compliment, you might say it differently to your boss than to a close friend.
And you pick that up mostly through listening.
Overwhelmingly, yes. That intuitive sense of what's appropriate in different situations is crucial for smooth communication.
And finally, confidence. That seems to be a thread running through all of this.
It's perhaps the biggest underlying benefit. The more you listen, the more varied examples of real spoken English you hear, the clearer your mental model becomes of how native speakers actually communicate.
You see it's possible.
You see it's possible. You notice how they handle misunderstandings gracefully, how they keep conversations going, how they express themselves even when they're not perfectly eloquent.
And that makes you less afraid to try yourself.
Absolutely. That confidence kind of rubs off. You become less focused on, oh no, what if I make a mistake? And more focused on just connecting, engaging, getting your meaning across.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, it's really clear listening isn't just a skill. It feels more like the foundation.
It really is the engine driving the whole process towards fluency. It connects everything.
Enhances vocabulary, sharpens pronunciation, helps you grasp grammar naturally.
Builds that essential confidence. It all comes back to listening.
And the key, as the sources keep saying, is consistency, right? Active engagement.
Consistency and active listening. Whether it's podcasts, videos, real conversations, you need to be engaged. You're not just letting sounds wash over you. You're absorbing how words work, how they connect to feelings, how they build stories.
It's an ongoing process of rewiring your brain.
That's the best way to put it.
So here's a final thought then for you to think about after this.
Yeah.
How might deliberately trying to listen for the things that aren't said, the pauses, the tone of voice, the implied meaning.
It's a subtext.
Exactly, the subtext. How might listening for that change not just your English skills, but maybe even how you interact with people every day, even in your own language?
Interesting question.
Something to mull over. Keep listening, keep practicing. You'll definitely keep seeing progress.